What it do, anime crew? Hey man, listen, today I'm going to be ranting about Yosuga no Sora as I finished it. Yosuga no Sora. So, pretty good. 2010, I believe, harem visual novel adaptation. I've only seen like 3 things that fall into that category, but this is definitely the best one. Immediately, the way I would sum this up is that I think this is like, I could see this being somebody's favorite anime. Like, if your thing is really harem, like horny, freaky diddy anime shit, you know what I'm saying? Like I could see how this would absolutely be like one of your favorite anime or even your favorite anime of all time, because it seems like the perfect execution of that story type. It doesn't do that much for me personally, but there were still a lot of things that I was able to appreciate about this show. The first thing is that it's actually pretty funny, especially the after credit bits. This anime has 2 or 3 EDs depending on where you're watching it, which is really weird. But after the first ED, it plays like a route where the main character dates like the meme girl who's like a maid, and they get up to a lot of like wacky hijinks, and the art style becomes much more chibi. And there's like a couple of really good gimmicks. Like one of the characters, for no ostensible reason, her head just becomes enormous, like 10 times the size of a normal head whenever she's in that art style. And to my knowledge, it's never really explained why. And that's really goofy because it's already one of like the goofier, like stupider characters. But that's really good. There's a lot of jokes there that's pretty good. One of the most noteworthy things about the series is the fact that it is extremely explicit, full frontal, almost every episode. Like, this is TV anime with nudity. I was not expecting it. Honestly, it's kind of like nothing I've ever seen before. The way that it's structured, a lot of people take issue with, but I knew about it going in, so I didn't have any problems personally. Basically, it goes through every single route in the visual novel, but every route only takes like 2 episodes. So it's like 2 episodes, and then it restarts from like a certain point in the story, but it doesn't tell you that it's resetting and doing a different route. So it seems like the main character is just like skipping back and forward in time and getting with every single girl, but really the story is just like resetting and going down a different timeline every few episodes. And it doesn't get to the best timeline until the very end, and then the end is kind of sad because like this is a show for freaky anime fans, because in the last arc, the main character dates his sister, which is the thing in anime. Listen, I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum when it comes to fictional anime stuff. Not my thing, but the weird thing is how straight they play it. The weird thing is how like diegetic, like in universe, everybody's like, what the hell is this guy doing? That is so messed up. We can't associate with this guy. Like, it's like they really take it. So there's one character who's like, she was crying all night, and she comes to school with red eyes because she was so disturbed by like walking in on him with his sister. This is a wild one. Shout out to Izzy Boy for forcing me at gunpoint to watch this, because I probably wouldn't have finished it if not. But hey, you know, the most interesting arc is at the end, and it's not about how you start. Sometimes it's about how you finish. Sometimes it's about how often you finish. If you're finishing every single episode in a different place. I'm sorry, I'm done. But yeah, Yosuga no Sora, the soundtrack is like almost classical, very beautiful. Very beautiful. And it's interesting because you have that main sort of like incestuous dynamic that there is, obviously, and most of the time, you know, the community is going to play it for jokes and whatnot. But almost every single dynamic, relevant relationship, and even friendship dynamic in this series is driven by familial issues, conflict, and relationships. Because there's the 2 sisters that the main character can kind of date. Each other's sisters, not his own sister, who he can also date. But the 2 sisters that he can date have like this weird thing where one of them is like a bastard child born to like a woman of low status, and their dad's like a very important man, and one of them's Mrs. Perfect, and he makes her play the violin, and she's like a prodigy at it, and she's so good, and the other one is like exiled to go live on this shrine alone, but then it turns out that there may have actually been a mix-up, and she's the real biological daughter. It gets really, really complicated, but a lot of it is about like parental acceptance, kinship, and sisterhood between the two of them. Even though, the exploration of it, some people may see it as a bit sleazy or whatever. I don't actually think that undermines the profundity of it, to be honest. What I will say is a bit undermined by the fact that the main character gets with every girl, like every episode, is that it kind of makes it feel less special, a little less impactful when it's just like, okay, every episode, oh, there's porn, there's porn, there's porn, there's porn. It's like, I don't know. It's not really my thing. I think, don't get me wrong, like the aesthetic is solid. I think it's really funny in the after credit scene where it's like the meme. There's also a really good bit in the after credit scene where they're like, today's quote, no more porn. Today's quote, no more porn again this time. Haha. But the art style's weird. The art style's it's not weird. It's very straightforwardly effective and everything's on model and it's got its own defined aesthetic that fits with the soundtrack, that fits with the backgrounds. There's actually a lot of decent cuts of directing and animation here. It's not really my thing though. Like I don't tune into an episode of Yosuga no Sora and just immediately start thinking, oh, wow, I'm so titillated right now. Like, it just doesn't do it for me like that. But that's just not really how I engage with the anime for the most part. I find myself more attracted to like the character designs of maybe like Shiki or like Red Garden or something. But this is like just not really my thing. It's not really my vibe. It's not really my aesthetic. So it didn't totally work for me on that level. What I did appreciate about this was the soundtrack, the bits, the surprisingly emotional and realistic issues of family turmoil and strained dynamics. When it comes to the character of Now, and even the main dynamic of the two main characters who are all each other have, and they have like these sort of abandonment issues because of the loss of their parents and the time that they spent away from each other. How they both become extremely protective and defensive of each other and start to sort of take on. It's so weird because they're like siblings first and foremost, and they have that sibling banter, but then they also take on mutual like parental roles towards protecting each other in the absence of their parents as they're forced to mature faster. But then also the wires get crossed and it gets all weird, and they have like a sexual and romantic dynamic on top of a sibling dynamic on top of like a parental dynamic. It's very weird. It's very messy. It's very dysfunctional. But it's legitimately like a pretty interesting character dynamic that's explored a few times in its dysfunction, in the way that it isolates them and stops them from being able to communicate with their friend group. And it never really gets cleanly resolved. Like, this show doesn't have necessarily like a very happy ending. It has a pseudo realistic ending where everyone's just kind of like scarred by the fact that they realized that's what was going on the whole time. And like they just kind of move on. It's really weird. The second ED is peak fiction. The second ED is so badass and awesome. I love it. First one's whatever. OP is whatever. But yeah, some of the outfit design's really good for the main girl, Sora. Their stuffed animals cute. A lot of the chibi scenes are really funny. I like that Now is just like a little floaty, and that's like a recurring joke twice. Like when this series actually locks in and tries to just be funny, it's really funny. It just ends up being super dramatic and at times melodramatic, which is very interesting. Like this one's tonally a bit unique, I would say, because it's more explicitly sexual than almost any other TV anime I've ever seen. Maybe actually any other TV anime I've ever seen. But at the same time, it takes itself very seriously in terms of the character dynamics and interactions. But then sometimes it kind of makes the sex scenes feel sleazy, in my opinion. Like when that girl was like looking for the pendant that was the last thing connecting her to her mother, who she hadn't seen in forever, that she was like crying over not being able to find. And then she finally finds it, and it's returned to her as like a symbol of kinship within her family. And it allows her to start healing and seeing her sister on more even terms, all this stuff. And then the main character has to like do her while she has the pendant on. It's just like, ugh. I don't know. I didn't like that much. But I don't know. I sound like a loser. This show's funny. All right. This show's funny. It's well presented. I feel like it's perfectly captures exactly what it's trying to do. It's like this dramatic romance. It's not afraid to go like very explicitly sexual It's a harem. It shows dysfunction. It's got all these like fetishistic tilts to it. Not really the type of thing I'm super into. Not the type of thing I watch that much. I don't know if I'll watch much else like this going forward, but you know what? I think it did it about as well as you could, and I commend it for that. So shouts to Diddy Boy, Izzy Boy. You're the GOAT. Hopefully you watch this rant. Let me know what you think down below. I guess really quick I could talk about some of the characters. The main guy's cool. Like, he's pretty cute. He's good-natured, typical harem protagonist. You can actually kind of see why girls all fall for him, especially they're in a small town where the only other eligible bachelor is the stupid best friend character who's just a bumbling idiot with no redeeming qualities whatsoever, so that the reader doesn't have to feel like they have like real competition. I always kind of feel bad for that guy because he gets cucked inevitably in every single one of these stories. It was the same thing in Bridge to Starry Skies. It's just him getting cucked. But then all the girls get cucked too, so it's like, this is just a cuck fest because everybody likes one guy. I really liked the arc with the girl who plays violin. I thought it was very sweet. I thought her reconciliation with her father and her resentment towards him for sort of estranging her sister and her coming to realize his perspective on things and them having like a more open dialogue was very beautiful. Her sister I thought was hilarious. I almost just wish she was more comedic relief and had her little arc. I almost wish she wasn't really an eligible bachelorette. I kind of felt weird about that, to be honest. Now was an interesting one because Now was actually just a straight up story of abuse and sexual dysfunction and trauma and being exposed to that kinds of stuff too early in life and then going back and falling back on it later. And she was the direct conflict with Sora because Sora was trying to protect Haru and keep her to himself, or keep him to herself and all this stuff. Well, Now was she saw Now as the person trying to take Sora, or take Haru away, take away his innocence and all that stuff. And so their little dynamic of them both seeing him as their savior, one because he was the only person there for her, and the other because he was the only person available, basically there for her too, is really interesting because you have these two girls who probably would be fairly kindred spirits, who unfortunately, due to the fact that their main goal in life is both to cuck each other, are just constantly at odds. Specifically, Sora is more antagonistic towards her because Sora's like a little brat. But yeah, I liked the maid. The maid was funny. I liked the maid. She was whimsical. She was cool. She had aura. I like the maid, okay? You know what? That's what I'll say. And there was one scene in the first episode where there was a straight up animation error, which was really uncharacteristic of such a polished show. But I rewinded 5 times and it was really weird. They were driving in a car, but the scenery was moving in the wrong direction. So it was like they were just reversed in a car going down the road. That's pretty much all I have to say about this. I thought the sections after the first credits were really cute and really endearing. And then it was a little bit more hit or miss before that. But I thought it was executed extremely well. Just not totally my thing. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments.